Regarded as one of the best of all time, Sandy Koufax had a short career due to injury, but after an alright start to his career, he returned to baseball, and his 5-year peak that included great postseason performances made him a first ballot Hall of Famer alone. So let's look at Koufax's peak and where it ranks all time.
Totally sports-esque. Major League.
Koufax was a great all-around athlete in his youth, and he was actually better known for basketball than baseball. He walked on at the University of Cincinnati, and before basketball coach Ed Jucker, who was also the baseball coach, went on a road trip to New Orleans, Koufax walked into his office and told him that he was a pitcher, mainly because he wanted to visit New Orleans. And after a tryout, he would make the team and dazzle his teammates and opponents with his 90-mile-per-hour fastball, and struck out 51, walked 30, with a 2.81 ERA in 32 innings. He would then start receiving attention from Major League scouts, the Brooklyn Dodgers giving him a glowing review, the New York Giants giving him a tryout that did not go well as his nerves caused him to be wild. Will Branch Rickey, who was the GM of the Pittsburgh Pirates, said that he had the greatest arm he had ever seen, but Koufax committed to the Dodgers before the Pirates could make him an offer. This all happened very quick for Koufax, and a part of his contract gave him a bonus that would allow him to finish college if his career failed. And Koufax would struggle in the beginning. Only pitching in college and sandlot games before, he struggled with a new training regimen, often having a sore arm, and also not knowing much about fielding his position, holding on runners, and even catcher signs. And with the bonus rule at the time, the Dodgers were forced to keep him on the 25-man active roster for at least 2 full seasons. So while he should have started in the minor leagues, there was no time, and the Dodgers would make room for him on the roster after injuring his ankle to start the season by optioning left-hander Tommy Lasorda to AAA. In his first full season, Koufax pitched 41.2 innings, struck out 30, with an ERA of 3.02. The Dodgers would win the pennant, then they finally beat the Yankees in the World Series for the first title. But Koufax did not appear in the series, despite being on the roster. And after the last out of Game 7 was recorded, Koufax went straight to Columbia University for a night class in architecture. And 1956 was pretty much the same. He still had struggle with command, and he didn't pitch much, throwing just 58.2 innings with a 4.91 ERA, striking out 30, and walking 29. He rarely finished innings, and there was quite some time between appearances. With his talent obvious, players like Jackie Robinson clashed with Walter Alston over his lack of playing time. Koufax would pitch in Puerto Rico during the winter of '57, and in May of '57, his minor league restriction came to an end. So to prove he belonged in the majors, he got a start at Wrigley Field and would strike out 13 in a complete game. And that would give him a spot in the rotation. And despite winning 3 of his next 5 starts, he was then out of the rotation, still pitching 100 innings for the first time, and his most notable inning was his last, which was the last inning the Dodgers played in Brooklyn. And as Koufax and the Dodgers moved to Los Angeles amidst his military service, he had a few more similar seasons that were ultimately unremarkable for his later standards. From 1958 to 1960, he averaged 162 innings per year, going 27-30 with a 4.14 ERA, averaging 167 strikeouts and 99 walks for a 1.433 whip. Koufax was a part of his 3rd pennant-winning team in 1959 and finally got to appear in the World Series, pitching 2 scoreless innings in relief in Game 1 and starting Game 5, going 7, giving up just 1, but he still took the loss, though the Dodgers won the series in the next game. And in early 1960, he would ask for a trade that Buzzy Bavazzi did not give, and after another subpar season, after the final game, Koufax would throw his equipment in the trash and decided to quit baseball, devoting his time now to an electronics business that he invested in, a time period where Koufax was frustrated with his lack of development and his lack of playing time. Granted, it's hard to develop when you don't get that playing time. And again, Koufax wasn't that experienced before signing, and rules didn't allow him to develop in the minors when that was very needed. But Koufax would quickly regret the decision, saying he found his new job boring. And so he decided to give baseball another try. And something important that happened in this time was he underwent a tonsillectomy. And when he reported to spring training, he was 30 pounds under his normal weight. This is something that forced him to look after his nutrition and training that led him into getting into the best shape of his life, something he promised to do before spring training each year. And along with that, he also fixed his mechanics so he didn't rear back as far, while working with a statistician to go over the importance of first pitch strikes, along with his famous off-speed pitches. And he also worked on calming himself when things started to go bad. And from there, the change was notable. 1961 would then be his breakout season. He would make his first All-Star team, doing so twice for the 2 games that year, and he would start 35 games, throwing 252.2 innings with a 3.52 ERA, while leading an FIP in his per 9. And most notably, he set a new NL record with 269 strikeouts, topping Christy Mathewson's 58-year-old record of 267, and doing so in 10 less innings. And for an idea of how much Koufax was pitching, after not getting much chance before, in his last start against the Cubs, he threw a complete game, struck out 15, and threw 205 pitches. Koufax swung the last inning for the Dodgers at Ebbets Field, and this one was the Dodgers' last game at the Coliseum. And that came to the benefit of Koufax, as the Dodgers' new home at Dodger Stadium would be pitcher-friendly with a lot of foul territory, a poor hitting background, and 330 down both lines compared to the 250-foot left field line with a 40-foot screen at the Coliseum. And as the Dodgers and Koufax moved to their new home, his real peak would begin. 1962 would get off to a great start, as on April 24th, he would strike out 18 Cubs at Wrigley Field, tying his own record for the most in a 9-inning game. But in his next start while he was up to bat, he jammed his hand on an infield single. He would stay in the game, and he threw a complete game, but the trauma from that jamming gave him Raynaud phenomenon in his index finger, something that got so bad that if he pressed the finger, it would turn white for hours. Despite this, he would fight through the numbness and would make the All-Star game again just over a week after he threw his first no-hitter against the 120-loss Mets on June 30th. But the index finger problem got to the point that he had to leave his July 17th start after the first inning, and he was sidelined until late September as doctors tried numerous ventures to dissolve the blood clot in the finger that at one point was close to amputation. The condition would alleviate, but the time off hurt him in his few final appearances as the Dodgers lost the pennant to the Giants. And while we just said that his peak began in 1962, it was still injury-shortened. But the rest of this run is amongst the best 4-year stretch any player's ever had. And not to take anything away from him, another advantage came in 1963 when MLB expanded the strike zone to combat what they perceived as too much offense. Regardless, Koufax was by far and away the best. Injuries just became something Koufax had to deal with. He missed a few starts in late April and early May, but in his second game back, he would throw his second career no-hitter against the Giants, only striking out 4 in a game he was perfect in until the 8th inning. He would again make the All-Star game with a 33-inning scoreless streak to start July, which would lower his ERA to 1.65, and he would go on to simply have one of the best seasons ever by a pitcher, starting 40 games, throwing 311 innings with a 10.7 WAR, an ERA of 1.88, winning 25 games, and setting a new record with 306 strikeouts, which gave him the pitching triple crown, while he also led an FIP, WHIP, and his 11 shutouts are still the most by a left-handed pitcher, and his efforts made him the first unanimous Cy Young winner at a time when there was only one award given out. And he became the 12th pitcher to win MVP in a year where Hank Aaron almost won the batting triple crown. And for the 4th time, he helped the Dodgers win the pennant, and this would be the second World Series he appeared in, with the first Dodger-Yankee World Series since they moved to Los Angeles. Koufax took the mound against Whitey Ford in Game 1, and would proceed to strike out the first 5 Yankees, then would go on to strike out 15 to set the World Series record. Then after the Dodgers won Game 2 and 3, he was again on the mound in Game 4, and he again threw a complete game, with the only run he allowed being on a home run to Mickey Mantle, as he would also strike out 8 more Yankees with 2 complete game victories and 23 strikeouts over the series to sweep the favored Yankees, as he was named World Series MVP. And by the end of this year of dominance, Koufax developed arthritis in his left elbow. He was often pictured with his arm in an ice bath after games, and he was also rubbing Capsulin on his arms before games, and was at a time taking a now banned anti-inflammatory pill meant for animals. And after negotiating a raise of $70,000, he made his only opening day start in 1964, as he became the first pitcher to record 3 Immaculate innings in his next start. But in his third, in the first inning, he felt something let go in his arm, this resulting in 3 cortisone shots and 3 missed starts. But when he came back, he casually went 10 innings for a win. Then 1 month later, he would throw his 3rd career no-hitter, tying Bob Feller as the only modern-era pitchers to do so. But while he made his 4th All-Star game, on August 8th, Koufax dove back to second on a pickoff attempt and would land on his elbow. He would still make 2 more starts after, but the morning after recording his 98th win, he woke up and found that his elbow was as big as his knee, and he could no longer straighten his arm. He was diagnosed with traumatic arthritis and would then miss the rest of the season, still winning 19 games, striking out 223, throwing a league-leading 7 shutouts, with a 1.74 ERA for his 3rd straight ERA title, as he finished 3rd in Cy Young. Koufax rested during the offseason and initially had no problems during the start of spring training, but after a start against the White Sox during spring, he woke up to find his whole left arm swollen and black and blue. It was there when doctors told him he would lose his entire ability to use his left arm if he kept pitching, but quitting wasn't an option, so he came up with a new plan. He initially stopped throwing between starts, and he also stopped throwing sidearm, which he often did against lefties, and he stopped throwing his slider, which he didn't often use anyway, and he continued to rub Capsulin on his shoulder before starts, and soaked his arm in ice with an inner tube to prevent frostbite. And if his elbow swelled, the fluid would be drained with a syringe, and at times he would be given a cortisone shot while he continued to take horse drugs, the necessary steps to keep going. and he would keep going in what was his best season. Fighting through the pain, he was an all-star once again, and actually was the winning pitcher. And again, the Dodgers were in the midst of a pennant race with their rivals in the Giants, and Koufax was on the mound in one of the most memorable games between the two. On August 22nd, it was another tense game, as Juan Marichal had been throwing some brushback pitches, causing Koufax to retaliate by throwing over Willie Mays' head, something Koufax did not do often, only hitting 18 batters throughout his career. Both teams were warned after the pitch, and Juan Marichal came up expecting retaliation, but instead, he was surprised when catcher John Roseborough's throw brushed past his face. And that's when all hell broke loose, as Marichal confronted him, which led to him hitting Roseborough over the head with the bat, causing 14 stitches. Koufax would race from the mound and try to break out the fight, along with basically everyone on the field. And 14 minutes later, after things calmed down, the game would resume. Koufax was a little shaken and ended up giving up a 3-run home run to Willie Mays, which would be the difference in a 4-3 game. Marichal received an 8-game suspension, and he couldn't pitch in the final series against the Dodgers in LA, something that went a long way in the outcome of the pennant race. And just over 2 weeks after that famous brawl, Koufax finally got what he was so close to. Facing a team he pretty much owned in the Cubs, it was an all-time pitching duel between him and Bob Henley, with the only run scoring on a throwing error, while Koufax struck out at least one in every inning through 7, and set every batter down. And over the 8th and the 9th, he would strike out all 6 Cubs to throw a perfect game, becoming the first to throw 4 no-hitters, with his 14 strikeouts the most ever in a perfect game. Bob Henley also only gave up 1 hit, which was the least combined hits in one game in MLB history. This game tied with Matt Cain's 14 strikeout perfect game in 2012 for the highest game score in a perfect game it would have won. And to the pain, he helped the Dodgers win another pennant. Koufax felt that his arm was actually shortening amidst the constant pain, having to reach over to reach his face while shaving. Regardless, he had his finest year. He threw a career-high 335.2 innings with 8 complete game shutouts as he won the Triple Crown with a 2.04 ERA, while striking out a career-high 382 for a 10.2 K per nine. Those 382 strikeouts a new modern record that would later be passed by Nolan Ryan, who also broke his record for no-hitters. Koufax leading in just about every category again, with his 10-4 the highest ever in a season for a Dodger, as he would win his second Cy Young and finish behind Willie Mays in MVP voting. About as good an offensive and pitching season you can get in one MVP race. But Koufax and the Dodgers got the pennant after he would throw a complete game on 2 days rest. In the World Series, the Dodgers were up against the Minnesota Twins. Koufax garnered national attention when he declined to start Game 1, as it clashed with Yom Kippur, a game in which the Dodgers lost, and his Game 2 start would be his worst World Series start to that point, which says a lot as he went 6 innings, gave up 6 hits and 2 runs, as he was the losing pitcher. But the Dodgers won the next 2, and he was back in Game 5, where he was dominant, firing a complete game shutout with 10 strikeouts and a 7-0 win to put the Dodgers back in front. The Twins won Game 6, and though Don Drysdale was fully rested, it was Koufax who got the ball in 2 days rest. And through the fatigue and pain, Koufax put up an all-time performance, again throwing a complete game shutout with 10 strikeouts, as the Dodgers won 2-0 for Koufax's 4th title. He would win World Series MVP again, Bob Gibson being the only other pitcher to win it twice, and he would be named the AP Male Athlete of the Year for the 2nd time. Impressive enough on paper, but the fact that he was doing this with immense pain made it even more impressive. And after his holdout with Don Drysdale, Koufax would reach the point where he could no longer straighten his arm. It's sometimes going numb, as he would drop anything that he was holding. Doctors told him he should retire then, but Koufax secretly decided to make 1966 his last season. And he was still down. He finally got to start the All-Star game and posted another incredible season. Just like the previous one, he threw 27 complete games, with 5 of those being shutouts, for a 1.73 ERA over 323 innings, winning a career-high 27 games and striking out 317 for his 3rd Triple Crown. Only Walter Johnson Grover Alexander had won 3 before, again leading in about every category, as he won his 3rd Cy Young and again finished 2nd in MVP voting. Koufax has a better case here than the previous one, but voter fatigue in a time of pitching dominance league-wide definitely played a factor. Koufax the first to even win 2 Cy Youngs, as it was only a 10-year award, and it was also a league-wide award every time he won. And with every pitch he threw that year, he felt pain like he hasn't before. Having trouble just combing his hair, he needed cortisone shots injected directly into his elbow joint. Shots that became more frequent, as by the end of the season, his left arm was bent at a 22.5-degree angle, while bone spurs in his elbow grew to almost a 1/4 inch. And he would have suit jackets retailored to hide this from the public. But the public saw nothing but dominance whenever he took them out. As on October 2nd, as the Giants again made a run towards the pennant, he threw a complete game victory over the Phillies to shoo the Giants away and gave the Dodgers another pennant. And with Koufax just pitching, It was Don Drysdale who again took them out in Game 1 of the World Series, this time against the emerging Baltimore Orioles. And he was not great, as he lasted just 2 innings, as the Dodgers lost 5-2. Then on 3 days rest, Koufax took them out in Game 2, and while he shut them out for 4 innings, the 5th saw the Dodgers make 3 errors, resulting in 3 unearned runs. His only earned run came the next inning, as he was taken out after the 6th, with hopes to reserve his arm for potential Game 5, as the Dodgers were shut out by a 20-year-old Jim Palmer. But he did not get that chance, as the Orioles would end up beating the Dodgers in 4 games. And a month later, to the shock of everyone except for those closest to him, he would announce his retirement at the age of 30, saying at the press conference, "I've got a lot of years to live after baseball, and I would like to live them with the complete use of my body. I don't regret 1 minute of the last 12 years, but I think I would regret 1 year that was too many." There are reports that Koufax could have kept pitching, but he risked his ability if he did so, saying later he has no regrets over his retirement that seems as though he had been considering for years. And according to biographer Carl Erskine, he felt at that point Koufax had nothing left to prove, also saying he seemed to never really be comfortable as a major league pitcher, in part because of his shy nature, and again, he went from being done with baseball to a major league pitcher basically within a year. And it is true he didn't have anything else to prove. Though the first half of his career was unremarkable, the last half alone put him in the Hall of Fame on his first ballot. Over his 12-year career, he won 65% of his 314 starts, pitching 2,324.1 innings with a 2.76 ERA, throwing 40 shutouts, striking out 2,396 for a 9.3 K/9, compiling a 53.1 B WAR, throwing 4 no-hitters, and holding his opponents to a 205 average. Numbers really carried by his last 5 seasons, where he compiled a 40.8 B WAR, won 111.34, throwing 1,377 innings with a 1.95 ERA, throwing 33 shutouts, striking out 1,444 for a 9.4 K/9, with 100 of his 176 starts being complete games. He won 3 Cy Youngs, an MVP, and 2 World Series MVPs in this time. Easily could have been the first to win 4 straight Cy Youngs if he wasn't hurt in '64, or even 5 without an injury in '62. All around about as good as you can get for a 5-year span for pitchers. But where does it rank amongst the best? Well, going by WAR, it ranks 8th in the modern era. Something that hurts Koufax a little is that he missed time during 1964. Granted, other pitchers like Greg Maddux missed time during their peak, which is why we see him and Koufax in the top 5 by ERA+. But what about just 4 seasons? Well, looking at the other 4 times a pitcher won 3 Cy Youngs over a 4-year span, the best by WAR, unsurprisingly, belongs to Pedro Martinez. And just for a quick overview of Koufax's workload, he leads in innings, games, and wins here, along with ERA. There will never be a better 4-year span than Randy's and Pedro's, just out of pure dominance in the steroid era. But what Koufax also has for him is that he won 2 World Series MVPs and 3 Triple Crowns in this time. Granted, there was only the World Series, which is why he's pitched way fewer playoff innings compared to the rest, but that .95 ERA is still incredible. And amongst these 5, it is Koufax and Pedro whose span alone put them in the Hall of Fame on their first ballot. Those 2 lacking in some typical long-term milestones amongst Hall of Fame pitchers, but like every pitcher who's won 3 Cy Youngs, except for Roger Clemens, it's almost a guarantee to make the Hall. But Koufax's peak is so interesting because just a few tweaks made after straight-up quitting the game led to a span of dominance not seen since the dead ball era. With the Dodgers moving to a pitcher-friendly park, those tweaks brought 5 years where Koufax won the ERA title each year, 3 Triple Crowns, 3 Cy Youngs, 2 World Series MVPs, while setting numerous records. And most impressive, he did this when his arm was close to being unusable. But he did just enough to cement himself amongst the best of all time, and then retired young and at the right time for his own personal reasons, right after one of the greatest stretches baseball will ever see.